Hi everyone, it's 6:30 p.m. on a stunningly beautiful Monday, August 18th, 2025, and I will call this regular meeting of the Waterbury Select Board to order. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Motion by Kane, second by Roger to approve the agenda. Any questions or discussion? Right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we've approved the agenda. Next up on the agenda is the consent agenda items. We have 5 items. The first is to approve the minutes of our last regular select board meeting on August 4th. We have a special event permit, liquor permit for the Country Club of Vermont, special event permit, 2 of them, for the event we approved at our last meeting at the Waterbury Reservoir for Split Spirits LLC and White Mountain Distillery, and a special event permit for Spunkler's Notch Distillery on August 30th. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mike, second by Can on consent agenda. Tom, could you let Ann Imhoffen, please?
Yes, sir.
Any questions on this? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. That brings us to public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to comment on something that isn't on the agenda that we just approved for the meeting. We ask that folks keep their comments under 5 minutes, and if needed, we're happy to schedule a follow-up at a future meeting. Anyone who'd like to speak on public policy? First up, we have Sandy Saban. And thanks for knowing the drill and coming up to the table to help with the owl.
Actually, I got a question from somebody that asked if I would ask you guys this question. It's on the Stanley Lawson site. She wanted to know if the town is able to move forward without any public vote. For example, if you sell the lot, can you pass it through to a developer without any input?
Good question. So question on Stanley Wasson, I guess just the fact to say is that we do have, it was a request for proposals currently posted on the municipal website where folks can get updates. That's posted, that's out for the month still. We have
For the end of September, it's due.
So we're accepting responses to the end of September. I think the technical legal answer to your question, I'll defer to Tom. I think the select board does have the authority to do that. If we would do so without public comment is a separate question, but I'll go to Tom.
So select board does have legal authority to buy and sell property on its own accord. That being said, the proposal that's out there was something that was reviewed at multiple select board meetings. And so I guess I would be surprised if this select board said, well, we're going to review the proposal in public and then we're going to do everything on our own without any public input.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Harry Shepherd.
I too was away for a few weeks. So I'd like to just chat a little bit about the RFQ, right? So a couple comments. I see this as a request for qualifications, not a proposal. And understood that we want to vet whoever we might try to do business with that way. I did have a question, Tom, on the second paragraph under project goals. Town seeks a developer to design, construct, and/or operate a market rate multifamily residential parcel on the property as a first priority. The town further welcomes a second phase that would include a workforce housing component. Is this a 2-phase project? Help me understand what you're hoping for there.
So tried to give goals, but also to write it open-ended enough to let the development community tell us what works and what is feasible for them. But in talking to affordable housing developers, just having some knowledge of that world, those projects take longer to put together than market rate housing does. That's just the practical reality of it. Unless, of course, the town is going to throw many millions of dollars at it. There's just a longer time horizon, and I think given the current federal environment, that's even more true than ever. And so I think logically, if there is an affordable component there, it is going to be a phase 2 simply by virtue of the timing. So I think stating it that way was just an acknowledgement that that's just how long these things take. And I know Mike worked in that world for some time, so he can refute my statement or affirm it, I suppose. But
I concur 1,000% with what
Yeah.
Tom just said.
And I think I support it now that you've explained that rationale, because I think I agree also that that's a reality. So the last comment I would make is that when you start getting into the deliverables, it feels a lot more like a proposal than a request for qualifications. And I'm wondering how receptive the development community has been. Do you think you have people interested? Because this list of deliverables is an awful lot to ask. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure how you're going to be able to compare apples and apples, because we just don't really know enough about what's truly deliverable. Did I say that correctly?
yeah,
Yes.
it is certainly a lot to ask and requires the developers to put some time and investment into the upfront section. You're not wrong, and I suppose the worst case scenario is no one bids, in which case we put our thinking caps on again.
Okay.
No, the
Have
challenge.
Anybody express interest?
Yeah, the challenge we have here is, I'll give you an example. Barry City put out something similar a year or so ago, and they were selling a lot for $1, and so they would have put out a 1 or 2 pager. And other communities have put out a 50-page document where they've essentially engineered, designed the site, and they're saying, here's the plans, here's where the buildings are going, here's where the access road is. We want to see 65 apartments. Will you bid, sort of thing. To get to that phase takes a lot of consultant money, and so I was hoping to avoid that. I'm not sure we can accomplish that, but I think what we're going to get back is going to require, a substantially iterative process with a developer. I think that's just the reality of it. I'm also hopeful that, almost 2.5 acres in Waterbury, served by municipal water and sewer, is going to be a valuable enough property that they'll be interested in that.
I hope so too. All right, and I think the last one is that there was an indication on here about towns' potential financial involvement. The town is willing to assist in pursuing funding opportunities, tax credits, or other funding assistance, and maybe be like the conduit for grants and things to that effect. Is that the full scope of what you guys are envisioning the town's financial obligation for this endeavor to be?
So I think the answer is yes at this time, because nothing has been authorized. Barry put a chunk of land out to bid, not as big as this. I think it was about 1 acre, with a lot of potential for $1. Other cities and towns have taken a different approach, and they've put properties out to bid with, in some cases, many millions of public dollars attached, and they felt that was necessary to to just attract a developer.
Are those grant funds, Tom, that are appealing, or are they actually like funded by property taxes?
In some cases, that's grant funds. In some cases, it's local funds. Some cases, if you've got, you've got the ability to invest in infrastructure that might be needed. I think that's all conversation if this fails, which I'm hoping it doesn't.
Great, thank
But
you.
I guess I just didn't see as a first matter of business the need to recommend to this board and the public that we invest a lot of public dollars into the site, unless the market proves otherwise.
Okay, great, thank you.
It looks like Mike has a comment. Go ahead.
Just in addition, maybe to help you out, Harry, having been in that world for a lot, I think it's good that we are open-ended enough to give developers some bandwidth to develop a good project. Because if you really scope something so specific, you may not get good quality developers or a project that's really feasible. And I think the way that the RFQ was developed was intentional for that, to develop interest in good qualified developers who can bring in a project on time, on budget, etc., and bring the community something that they're going to want. You know, you always hate when developers try to shove something that the community doesn't want. We want to have buy-in from the community as well as the business community and create a good working project, because we do have multiple housing issues and there are different ways to skin a cat, you know, and I think that's going to develop it. Hopefully good qualified developers will, you know, vet out what may be a good quality project for the site and the community.
I think I agree with most of that. The only thing I would caution there is that I think when you get into the scope of the deliverables, you're asking for a lot more. And I think it's really important to make sure that you guys smell that out, that in fact it's truly deliverable, because there's a lot there, and I wonder how that's going to factor in a RFQ kind of decision making.
Because especially what Tom and you didn't mention, you're going to want to have a developer, especially if there is some component of affordable housing, someone who has, especially if it's multifamily, experience with low-income housing tax credits. Because if you have someone new in that arena, that project is probably not going anywhere.
Well, how we've structured the RFQ to kind of have a two-phase process that's a little amorphous, right? And it'll be interesting to see what replies we get. And so,
Right.
I don't want to say more to tell them. Thank you.
Thanks for your input.
Thanks, Harry. So first, my apologies to Sandy, who spoke before you, and I will just say it is a request for qualifications. It is on the town website right now under news and initiatives. If anyone's interested, you can go to Stanley Wasson Property Development. With regard to cost, I will just note the last paragraph of the last sentence of the first paragraph is that the town has the option to purchase for $400,000. We are seeking to purchase the site and transfer it to a developer in an amount equal to or greater than the purchase price. So that is the, the current public, and then just to say the current timelines in here, just for public awareness around, this was issued on August 5th after our last meeting. Developer questions are due August 29th and proposals are due Friday, September 26th. And I will just say we've received other comments about public input and who's involved in reviewing that, and I anticipate it's something we'll discuss further as a group. Anyone else who would like to speak on public comment about anything not on the agenda? All right. Speaking for myself, I will say that it was very exciting to witness a white monarch butterfly be released on Friday from the library. They were raising them, and I know a ton of volunteers were involved, and you had folks of truly all ages in Waterbury present, and it was released out in the garden at the library. So just want to say thanks to everyone involved, and we made the news. WCX, in addition to Lisa, was present, and big kudos to Lisa, I think, for getting the word out and getting so many people to show up. So for all those interested in monarch butterflies, lots of information that you can find from the library. Any other public comment? All right, we are right on time. So next up we have reappraisal update. I know our town assessor, Dan Sweet, is here. Thanks for being here, and Tom, and I don't know who wants to speak first or in what order.
Well, I can just share where we are right now, and we're sending letters tomorrow. This is a draft of what we've got. I think I've got copies for you guys to look at. And we're gonna start by sending letters, 50 in the first batch, we're going to start northwest part of town, Brig Hill area, and then work our way down 100, hit Ruby Raymond, that area, Russell Road, et cetera, work our way back, probably to the center, and then do the northeast part of town, kind of work south as we go. The letter is just a, call us to schedule. This is a process that's starting, kind of, I did a little FAQ at the bottom that, the typical questions that people always have, try to head off a little bit of the fear of this whole thing, because there is a lot of nervousness when people's values go up. The tax question is always front and center. So try to address some of that right out of the gate so that people are maybe a little more apt to give us a call and schedule to actually do inspection, more properties that we can get into, the better our data is going to be, and we're going to be representing our reassessment values as accurately as possible. So any questions? My intent would be to, as we get going here, I'll come back and let you guys know where we are.
Roger?
What do you do if they opt for refusal?
Well, that's everybody's certainly their right to refuse. If subsequently they want to grieve the assessment, because we're just guessing at that point as to what's going on, applying a value that's as closely in line with fair market as we can. But if they want to grieve that assessment, when we get to that point, we're going to have to say, you need to let us come look if you really feel like it's in error. So that's their choice.
I've seen that play out in real time
Yeah.
several times where people grieve it, and then the minute they've got to let you in, suddenly that's a very different conversation.
Right. And if they still don't want to let you in, then they kind of lose their opportunity to grieve.
The grounds for the grievance. Yeah.
Mike?
Dan, what percent on the last reappraisal were grieved?
Oh, good question. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 150. And I don't know what.
That gives me kind of a good idea.
And there might have been half a dozen or a dozen that went to BCA after that. Which is, I think, holding true. I know that the Stowe reappraisal was 300-ish grievance, maybe a little more than that. And again, the same 30-ish that went to BCA. So.
Yeah, because I know, having been in the appraisal world, people don't understand if your property value doubles and everyone's property value doubles, that it won't have any effect on your taxes.
Right.
Because everyone, and people don't, they just see, oh, my property tax is going to double, so my taxes are going to double.
That's always the fear.
So that's maybe a good thing to publicize among the uneducated, people.
Yeah.
They're not uneducated, but, it just
not
seems to
familiar.
make sense that they're not familiar with the reappraisal and or appraisal process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of, there's a page on the town website that goes into that a little more.
Right, because we're going to see big increases in property valuation, but
Oh,
if
absolutely.
everyone goes up, it has, a zero-sum effect.
Exactly.
I think you also tried to address it in your frequently asked questions, so thank you for at least attempting to head it off like Mike's suggesting.
Yeah,
So.
knowing what happened with the conversations in the Stowe reappraisal, that's just constant. So if we can answer those ahead of time, then great.
And Mike, we have, I just pulled up the 411 on my phone. We have about 2,300 tax parcels. So if 150 grieve, 6%, something like that.
And that's not untypical.
Which that's expected.
Yeah, no, what I've paid attention to other towns. I guess if there's a trend I've seen is that it's not that any property is going down in value, it's that sometimes residential has gone up higher than the others, and residential takes a little bit more of your grand list, which means property owners get a little bit more of the impact once it's all finalized, those residential property owners.
Good point.
I'm not forecasting that here, I've just seen that in a few places.
Right. That's always one of the things that can have a outsized impact on residential versus commercial rates. It's how much of the grand list do they comprise when we get around to it. Finalize all this under.
Dan, when this is all said and done, that first year, will our CLA be 100?
It should be a little better than 100, say
Okay.
110. Because if the market continues to increase as it has, I mean, that essentially buys us a couple of years until that comes, the growth of the fair market will then reach the assessment level of the grand list.
Okay.
It's pretty typical of what you're shooting for. By the time we get all these numbers done, if we're shooting for 110 and the market continues, we may be at 105. Just the way things are going.
Okay, and then we've talked a little bit about hiring part-time people. We have a reappraisal reserve. So I guess I'm teeing up the board that don't be surprised if soon enough there's a draft job description in front of you and a request to move forward with that.
Right. We're going to try to get the kinks worked out first before we bring anybody else on board.
But that won't be forever. That'll be, I think, pretty quick.
Other questions folks have? I'm seeing Roger, then Mike again.
Is there any risk of us getting out in front of other towns on the reappraisal, getting more of a higher tax assessment relative to other towns in the education district, or is that how the CLA even
It's all factored into the state's calculation process. I don't think there's any downside. All the towns in the district either are in the process or will be going through reappraisal shortly.
But it seems as though we're in front of some of the other towns.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what everybody's schedule specifically is, but I don't think there's any downside to it, Roger.
Mike, you had another question?
Is there a period of time that homeowners and businesses can expect that their site visits, like between such and such day and such day, you'll be completing the majority of the visits?
Like weekdays?
No, just like in terms of like from this month through.
We'll be doing this all, so starting probably September 1st through at least the end of next year.
Okay, that long, because I know it says that you'll have to be done by April 1 of 27.
Right. So if we can get everything
So
wrapped up by the end of next year, and then finalizing all of our underlying cost table structure and publicizing all those numbers for grievance period of 27.
thank you.
I see a question from Chris in the audience. Go ahead.
I wasn't going to say, plan on saying nothing to this topic and going a little bit. To Mike's point, first I want to read you a little letter or a comment that I got from a client of mine today when I reached out to him to ask him about a pond that he was thinking about building. Asked him, I pointed him towards some wetland specialists because I feared that he might have been in some wetland area. So I said, curious, what happened with your pond deal? And this was a couple months ago. He said, we got our property tax bill. It was much more than we expected. Stopped us in our tracks for a bit. I made a comment on what repeat. And he says, honestly, it made us question even keeping the house. These are people who've been here for 2 years. He drives, or he captains the container ships that deliver to different countries, that floats up the Hudson there and out into the ocean. He said it's insane. And then we got hit with a $400 penalty for not doing homestead, which we never even knew about. Then we did it, and our taxes went up. When we asked at the tax office how we're supposed to know, the answer was, you're just supposed to know. I said, people gotta wake up. He said 100%. So unfortunately, all new work is stopped until we figure out what is going on, what we're gonna do. He said, it's been frustrating. I'm hearing that more and more often from people. These are newcomers. Anybody that you would expect to be able to afford to live here. But to your point, when you talk about people's concerns about their property values doubling, it should scare the hell out of all of us. Because to me, there's no safeguards that says that in 2 years, 5 years, with the condition, financial condition of the state, they're gonna have to start generating additional revenue somehow to dig themselves out of this hole or make some serious changes. And this gives them the opportunity to come after the value of your home, because now it's double from what it was, even though your incomes have stagnated. So, your point about grievances and whatnot, my place in Holland, and I'm torn what to do. A woman came, apparently was on camera, she was going around the outside of the house, but then she contacted my wife and wanted to go inside. I said, if we let them inside, we're screwed. Simply because the workmanship and the unique construction inside that building is basically not very common, put it that way.
So it's unique. In other words,
To say the least.
another word would be custom.
Yeah. And I was just talking to my 88-year-old neighbor who's got the place next door to me, him and his 90-year-old girlfriend, about what to do, how to secure the future of my children and grandchildren. And I've said this 100 times before, and I hope people are listening. One time I said, I'm trying to figure out how I can live as long as I can to protect my children and grandchildren. Because once I'm gone, God pity them. Because if they get pushed out, it's getting down to the point where there's no place to run. That's affordable with any kind of quality of life. So this whole reappraisal thing, we've been dragged into it because of past years of people just throwing gobs of money at properties that we had no part of, but yet we're being sucked into this process.
No.
That scares the hell out of a lot of us.
Well, it's a process that's been going on for years and years and years. We reappraised last time in 2014, 15. Before that, it was 8 years before that, and it's the way our system is set up. Our property values, and this is a state mandate, our property values need to be in line with fair market values. And that's good or bad. In this particular climate, property values are increasing. We've seen property values decrease in the past. It's an extraordinary increase in the market. There's no question about it. And I don't know what your overarching point is, Chris, but this is, part of how the government, our financial system is set up. for financing town. Financing education is the biggest driver of the cost of our tax burden in the town and in the state.
But it seems like our situation, and maybe I'm wrong, within our state government financial situation is unprecedented. I don't know that the state's been in this type of financial trouble as long as I can remember.
I don't want to cut in, but I don't know that it's reasonable to expect our town's assessor to answer for the state's finance. I certainly don't want to answer for the state finance.
Anyway, I'm just saying.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. And I guess the points I do want to have Tom and maybe Dan reiterate is we did not have an option. So Waterbury's common level of appraisal, our CLA was lowering us, that the state did mandate us to reappraise, is that correct? So this is not a like.
This is not a choice.
We could not choose to opt out. I will name, I think there is state level legislation looking at totally redoing how this system operates generally.
Correct.
That has been passed. So there may be changes, but for right now.
They did pass the statewide.
I don't want to put Tom on the spot because I didn't tell him to prep for this, but I
No,
think there was.
There's a study committee, I believe.
There's a study committee where the state will take over this process.
We're not waiting for that to happen.
If we will,
Yeah.
it's another thing on their plate.
And I do just want to respond to one real quick thing, because Chris had mentioned that someone he knew just moved here, got hit with a late homestead penalty. People come into the office every year and complain about that. And their answer is sort of, how do I know? And the other answer is, a lot of people file their taxes and April 15th is the date we think about, but your homestead is due April 1st. I'm sure there's a really good reason for them not being on cycle, but I did call Tom Stevens a few weeks ago and just said someone moved to Vermont in February, filed their taxes April 15th, that's when they learned about the homestead. And I said, Tom, and maybe this law exists already, but that person said, how was I supposed to know? And I said, well, to me, your attorney at closing probably should have given you the form and said, here's what you should do. And I said, Tom, maybe that is the law, but if it's not, maybe it should be. Because it would be nice.
Attorneys are required to do that.
Okay, then they are already, that's great. But I just felt like somewhere there's a disconnect, and every year I get a handful of complaints from people who come to Vermont, and it does feel bad. It's like, welcome to Vermont, here's your extra bill.
Yeah, there's always a couple of folks that
Yeah,
are surprised.
and yeah, I guess it is what it is if it's already a requirement, but
Right, or you just don't hear it at closing, too.
yeah.
Other questions, other things Dan folks should know, so I'm hearing this is kind of a slow rollout. We're doing the first
Yeah.
number to get the kinks out, but this is going to be over a year, so we're
Yes.
not looking till, anything else you would want anyone who watches this recording later to know or be aware of?
Anticipate being back here and just giving updates, so we'll let you know how things are progressing, and how things keep going.
Tom, other things you
Great.
want to add or emphasize?
Got a website up, basic information, and we can add stuff there. It'll be live in the morning, but it's all set. Dan will get that letter out, and we'll start hitting Front Porch Forum, Facebook, and we also have an internal calendar. So if anyone calls the office and says, I want to get on the schedule, if Dan's not here, we can look at the calendar and at least put you on there. If it doesn't work, we can change it later, but at least we can say, hey, how's Wednesday at 10 work? And just try to take advantage of the people that do come in and get them on the calendar. And I think, your goal is 50%, so that's about 1,150 properties. Well, some are wooded, some are open land,
Yeah,
but
right.
fair amount of homes you want to get into.
Yes,
And businesses are on the same schedule?
businesses as well.
And if someone calls and they're not in the neighborhood you're at,
It's fine.
it's fine.
Some people are anxious to just get it done with, it's great. I'm happy to add them in and do it as they call.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for this for anyone? Info to know or share? All right, thanks for coming in. I think that wraps up tonight's
Thank you, Dan.
reappraisal updates.
Thanks, guys.
And just noting, so it's not on the municipal website currently, but will be
We'll be in the morning. yeah,
in the
thanks.
morning with all the updates for folks for scheduling and the like. All right, next on the agenda, we have flood mitigation updates, including the CDBG DR application, which I think we've mentioned in passing at other meetings, but Tom, I'll turn it over to you. I see Dana's online, and I know we have a number of updates.
Yep, CDBG DR, so Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Funds, of which Vermont has been awarded $67 million. So there was a deadline of early August to submit pre-applications, and that's really just a narrative of all your projects. So I submitted 4 pre-applications and was invited to submit 3 full applications. So the application I submitted but was rejected was actually for Stanley Wasson, and the general logic was CDBG money is HUD money. There's a low moderate income requirement where the benefit has got to go 70% to low moderate income individuals, and since that low moderate component of Stanley Wasson is the second component and it's going to take some time, that the thinking was not the strongest application for this particular pot of funds for that reason. We had a kind of a long conversation because Waterbury is not a low moderate income community overall. But we were invited to submit on the Randall Meadow floodplain project, and after doing some research, some state folks involved in this advised us that our census block that involves the downtown core is a low moderate income, census tract is a low moderate income census tract, and so that really strengthens the possibility of Randall Meadow getting some funding. So that's super helpful. We've got a hazard mitigation grant we're waiting on. We've got a CDBG pre-application approved, so we'll move to the full application there. We also submitted for the Waterbury specific hydrology study, and that was something that we had submitted for last year as part of a BRIC grant, and that was about $170,000, and then the BRIC program, literally, a day after we submitted it, was cut entirely. So we didn't have any funding approved, of course. We just had a grant application, but the program is gone. And so we talked through that at length with the folks at the state overseeing this program. And there was a little reluctance at first because Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission is also submitting an application. So they wanted to make sure ours was separate and distinct. And what Central Vermont Regional Planning is doing is they want to take all these existing localized studies of Winooski and weave them together to get a better, broader picture. And we talked about how, we really want to focus, we've got good data on Randall Meadow, we want to make sure we refine it, but we also don't have very good data further north. And that there's likely a Randall Meadow style project to be done that would benefit the folks in Route 2. We just don't have the data yet. And there might be some significant projects up Thatcher Brook or Grays Brook, and we don't have good data yet. And so we talked through that for some time. And the state said, go ahead and submit it. In the ensuing week or so, they said that they think it makes sense to simply include Waterbury's application with CVRPC and just do one. And CVRPC said, we're happy to add it, and I'm happy to have them do the work. So I think that's a good concept, that there's one entity applying for one pot of funds to do hydrology modeling of the Winooski.
So ours would be added into that project?
Yeah. We also talked about the Woody Avenue project, and one of the concerns the state raised there was there's, I believe, a 5-year timeline from grant award to spend the funding. I didn't see that as a particular problem, but they wanted to be clear. And then we talked through the low moderate income component, because if we apply for grants and it's accepted, we've got to adhere to that. And so that either requires some of the grant funding to go towards a specific project component that would serve low moderate income persons, or perhaps for the overall development to be low moderate income. And the conversation took some twists and turns during there, but what was noted is that senior housing, seniors, anyone over 65, according to the HUD rules, is automatically considered low moderate income. And so there's, just got me thinking a little bit about different possibilities for that site. But they encouraged us to submit for funding there, and then we can refine the HUD, we can refine the project according to the HUD rules as we go a little bit. And there's a little bit of time to work that out. So 3 grant applications in the works. The other interesting piece they said to me is that the applications are fairly difficult and time-consuming, so they highly recommended that we get some consulting help in putting them together. I've been reading through the application package. Dana Allen, who's already doing some existing work for us, has maybe found a matching grant to help hire a grant writer to assist with some of this, and so couple irons in the fire there to maybe get it done. The other piece, and I just want to be clear about this, again, CDBG money is HUD money. HUD money comes with a lot of administrative requirements, and so we get awards. It's just going to take some time and energy. Typically built into the award is money for administration, but it's likely beyond just the ability of the staff in this building to do it. So pretty substantial amount of funding awarded, pretty difficult to get to the finish line, even if we get some funds. Not the easiest thing to administer, but certainly well worth it. Because the $67 million is an awful lot to try to compete for, and it'd be, I think, especially in regards to Randall Meadow, certainly worth chasing. I think if we get to the point where we struggle to administer a substantial grant award, that's a problem we can overcome based on the dollars that are potentially out there for us.
Can I ask a quick question? Randall Meadow, and speaking on Randall Meadow, has that entered our domain yet, or is that still property of the state?
Not yet, and that's something we'll have to have soon, is some sort of an agreement with the state that, again, meets a HUD standard related to at least an option there. And we have had conversations about that. So working hard to try to get that done, and may come back to you with potential need to hire some help to get us to the finish line there.
What's the limit on the matching grant?
I believe it's $7,500 grant, so $15,000 expense in total you'd have to need to hit that. So that's that grant piece. We also had Dana Allen and I had a meeting with Pat Moulton, who's, I guess I've been calling Pat the flood czar for the region. I don't know her official title, but she's pretty high up in the chain of command with the state. We met with some federal folks with the Economic Development Administration, and we talked about potential funding for Randall Meadow through that federal agency, and the meeting felt unlikely because there is, it's Economic Development Administration. They want to see a private sector business impact. Certainly there's benefit to the businesses in South Main Street if there's reduced flood reduction, but they were talking about, hey, you need to move all this fill, or you're going to move fill and allow a business to expand because of it. And as of right now, the answer is no. So that seemed something to be aware of, but unlikely after the meeting. And then 2 other flood-related pieces. First is there is that tour of Randall Meadow with the National Park Service. It's Wednesday at 2:30. And that's part of the National Park Service program to work with us in some of the visioning for the site and how it might look when it's all said and done. And National Park Service, there's a parks, there's a recreation component, and so they're going to want to look at those aspects of it. And that'll be on site at 2:30 this week. Second piece is a committee of Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission had a meeting with a guy named John Goff, who's with the National Weather Service, and they focused on some improved flood inundation mapping that they've done. And so I'm going to send the link to that meeting. And maybe we'll throw it on our website, because it's interesting about the new tools they have and how they're continuing to refine things. And it's also part of the mapping that they turn on the same river gauge site that we all look at when an event gets closer. So it's just a good thing to be aware of, and I'll send that link out to everyone. And that's what I had on my list for flood mitigation updates.
Thanks, Tom. A lot there. Could you just reiterate the CDBG timeline
Yes.
for getting that submitted?
So full applications are due September 30th. There is a public hearing requirement, and so presumably that would either be the 3rd or the 1st or the 15th. Well, we could have 3 meetings in September, but there will be a public hearing requirement as part of the application process, and a legal warning as part of that. And then if there's a second, there's been some conversation about additional funding available, and if that's the case, those applications would be December 18th, but there's been no formal, at least to my knowledge, formal announcement that those additional funds are available. But I guess some anticipation if the state has published on their website dates.
So I also heard you say you have 3 distinct projects that have pre-applications, one of which has been combined with regional planning. Is your intent to submit for all 3? Is that the recommendation from?
That's the
folks?
recommendation from the state.
Okay.
Yeah, from the employees overseeing the process.
Kane had a hand up, and then Roger.
I guess my question is, the state advised to apply for these grants without our data from Thatcher and Graves? That's how I interpreted what you said.
The state, so we talked about a Waterbury specific study.
Right.
Stem to stern of the Winooski, go up Thatcher and Braze quite a bit. They advised us to submit. After a few days, when they had a chance to, I think, do the review with Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, they said they thought it was stronger if this was one application.
Got
And
it,
they also
okay.
thought, for Waterbury, that takes the administrative burden off of you.
Right.
And they've really been talking about the administrative burden of both applying and then administering the award. And so I'm pretty happy if CVRPC wants to do it. And they're a community partner, so I don't doubt they give us a good seat at the table as part of this.
Okay.
Roger?
If we only have a month or a month and a half for 3 grant applications, those could be lengthy. Would there be any advantage for getting started earlier? And would the excess LOT funding be an appropriate place to find $7,500 for the matching funds?
Yes and yes. I'm not going to argue with you on that point. Yeah, I don't have a consultant in mind yet. Wanted to really spend this week to try to focus on that and get a real sense of how much help we needed.
Mm-hmm. The opportunity is to perhaps pick up several $1 million
Perhaps.
for
Yeah.
$7,500.
Mike?
Is there any issue with the Wednesday meeting if multiple people here attend with open meeting law?
Yeah, there might be. There just might be. So it'd be nice too. That was on my list to figure out if multiple folks were going to attend.
Okay. I know I was planning on going.
We just can't talk to each other, Mike.
Yeah, and the other thing, I like the idea that they are looking at this as with adding, Thatcher and Graves, because I've always advocated flood protection has to be looked at as on a watershed basis, not on a project basis. Because if you look at it just in parts and pieces versus as more of a whole, you don't get the proper treatment.
Yeah.
Questions or input from the board? I'm here, a couple questions that need to be resolved. One, Wednesday, is there folks who know they will or will not attend on the board so we can figure out if this needs to be warned? I'm seeing a hand up for Roger, and Mike, you expressed interest. I'm gonna say, seeing no other hands going up, we'll plan to have the two of you attend as the select board representatives, and that will not constitute a meeting. We also heard a question and proposal from Roger around municipal support for the grant application and potential funding for that. I will say I share the instinct that I feel like after Irene, we had Barb Farr doing a lot of this work, not paid for by taxpayers always, but in general, I'm feeling like we stretch your capacity, Tom, quite a lot. So it sounded like there was a potential matching grant. Roger also raised the timeline in general, given that these are due in a little less than a month and a half. Do you have a proposal you would ask for from the board, Tom, or is that something you can come to us at our next meeting?
We're hopeful we can get $7,500. I'm just not quite at that point where I was prepared to ask you for funding tonight, but
Yeah.
I might honestly request a special meeting,
Okay.
perhaps by the end of this week.
Okay.
Just wanted to have clarity before I ask for the money.
Great. So I'm hearing that there is potential interest, may require a special meeting that would come back to the board with a specific proposal. Since you're online, Dana, I don't want to call on you specifically, but is the funding ready funding or is it something else?
Yeah, it is the READY program. So we've been in contact with BHTV. It sounds like we're definitely a candidate for funding. It sounds like we have a very good shot at getting it. So I'm not going to call it bird in hand, but we have a very good chance. Yeah, it's great. It'd be great to take that opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks, appreciate it. It's the Rural
Yeah.
Economic Development Initiative, for those in acronyms, soup land. Any other actions, updates, Tom? Questions from anyone here? I know that was a gauntlet of information. Yes, do you want to come up, Harry, just for the online folks? Thank you.
I would just say, Tom, thank you for trying to pursue that. That could be really meaningful. I noted that there were two projects. One was like to do an H&H study, and then the other one was possibly the meadow.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know enough about the H&H to know that the project we hope for at the meadow will in fact solve any problems?
Yeah, I believe we do. So SLR consultant who's done work for us to update the earlier modeling has updated the modeling, if you will, specifically for that site. So I think we know enough, and their modeling has also passed muster with the state in terms of applying for hazard mitigation funds. But what they concluded was, everything is based on a typical 100-year flood, but foot of flood relief extending up to about 7,000 feet upstream, upriver. So pretty meaningful, really. That covers Randall and Elm and all of South Main Street, really. And then that also has the corresponding impact of, you lower the water there, you lower this, you lower the, let me try to phrase this correctly, since you're an engineer, you reduce the problem of the stormwater outflows becoming inflows.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right. All right, well, I also heard, that the H&H might look at the north side of things. I just want to remind, we had real challenges out at Route 2 and
Yeah.
Forest Field, and so Bravo.
Yeah, I think we just don't know as much there.
I'm sorry?
I think we also don't know as much there.
Other questions? Dana, go ahead.
Sorry, did you call on me? My audio cut out. But thank you if you did. I think there is even as part of the Randall Meadow project, there is additional design done, which means additional survey and model refinement. So we have good preliminary H&H modeling for Randall, based on like the 2013 study. But then the additional design that would go into final design for the Randall Meadow project would include refinement of that, which, again, updated data, better modeling. And just to speak to the townwide H&H and the CVRPC grant application, we put our pre-application in separately from CVRPC to ensure that Waterbury got that coverage that we really need. There was, we pushed for an additional $1 million in money in CDB GDR, which they did, which, was really great. It was a good effort between Montpelier, Waterbury, and Friends of the Winooski, I think, to get that money. And then we definitely pushed really hard to ensure that our study was so specifically and explicitly included in this overall grant application, which wasn't clear until last week. So, we need that. We also need the alternatives analysis that's going into this overall as well. So not just what's happening, but where do we go to solve additional problems. So our townwide study will give us a sense of that, as well as this, again, the CVRPC study is going to support some level of analysis so that we know where to go upstream, downstream, basin wide. So we're making progress. It might not look like it. There's no backhoes in the floodplain, but there's definitely progress being made. So just speak to that because Tom has been pretty tireless on this stuff.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Other questions or comments on this? So anticipating more updates soon, at a minimum at our next meeting, if not a special meeting sooner. All of these projects will require a public hearing before they're submitted, and a big question mark right now is just if we need more support in the applications. Other questions or comments from anyone? All right, we are a mere 2 minutes over, but I will move us on to our next item, which was conveyance of property at 40 Union Street, and I think we have a memo from Tom.
Yeah, this one floored me. Everything from FEMA has been troublesome. I was told some time ago that essentially most of about half of our applications, half of the applications approved locally for FEMA buyouts had to be repackaged and sent to FEMA, and that they've changed the goalposts and changed the playing field a bunch over the past year. So it's been a little bit of a black hole. So I heard nothing, and we've got property owners who want an answer. And the answer I seemed to be getting was, don't hold your breath, who knows what's going on. So then I was forwarded to get an email suddenly late last week saying 40 Union Street, of which the owners accepted the appraisal months ago, is ready to close. And I found out about that. The owner found out about the same time. He was thrilled that there was some light on the end of the tunnel. I wrote in the memo I didn't know about the demolition, which is not done by us, done by the state with federal money. Got an answer today that they're hoping the demolition can be done in about 3 months, but they've got to bid it out, and they're bidding it out not just for Waterbury, but for other buyouts. So 3 months, probably 5 or 6, but there's no reason you can't tear down a house in the winter. Again, all state, all done, federal money with the state. I guess the only part I will say is that I've seen a bunch of properties demoed, and it's not uncommon to call the fire department just to hose the thing down and weather depending and keep the dust down. That's a pretty cheap thing to do. But it's good that there's some light at the end of the tunnel for at least one property owner. And then just a reminder, the 4 bottom houses on Union Street were all approved for buyouts locally. 2 are vacant. This is one of them. So if we get some additional clarity on the other 3, I think at some point it would be great to have a community meeting to start talking about what you do with that assemblage of parcels. You can't develop it as part of a buyout, but maybe there's some other options that would serve us all well.
Well, Roger really likes pocket parks.
He does.
Another dog park?
Small.
Does anyone have questions for Tom? And just noting that there is a need here for us to make a motion to move forward with this. Roger?
I move for the town to accept the conveyance of the property at 40 Union Street through FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and to authorize town manager and town attorney David Rue to execute any and all documents needed to close on the conveyance.
Second. King can have it.
I think King can have it, but Tori was closer to me, so I think I heard her first. So,
I
for
don't-
the minutes.
I don't care.
Being done after the fact by Cheryl Casey, we'll have motion by Roger, second by Tori, as designated in the memo. Do we have questions or discussion on this item? And I'm just reiterating, Tom, that we've reviewed this a million times, but the state is covering the local match and all the costs for this. It will need to be green space in perpetuity. The town will own it. This one does not have any brownfield concerns, so we're just taking title to it,
Yep.
assuming this motion passes. Any other questions? And just reiterating, I think, right, more discussion to come about
Yeah.
these parcels. All right. Any other questions, comments on this? Right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the motion passes. Next up, we have, to me, a very exciting preliminary discussion and review of the revised events permit, and credit to Tori, who I think came up with the first draft of this. If you've been coming to select board meetings for any amount of time, we frequently spend a lot of our time reviewing special events permits. There's a lot of different component pieces that are involved in them. And I think at least my own conclusion is they didn't all live in the same place. Some were attached to ordinances, some were in entertainment permits, I don't even know. So I think this is a first draft at trying to combine some. I think we know that more folks will need to go through it. But we had a draft, so we threw it on the agenda. And
Yeah.
Tori and or Tom, I don't know who wants to start.
I'll just start with, it is a very, very first rough draft, and honestly, if you tell me I missed something, I'm not gonna be surprised, but we have to take a stab at it. Tom, if you wanna add anything.
I think it's a great start. This has bedeviled us, I think, for a long time, since I've been here, and it sounds like before. I guess first thing I'd say to the select board is, and maybe I'm wrong, but my impression is the struggle has been sometimes to review applications, but it hasn't been an ordinance problem. It's just been a little bit of, we're unsure sometimes what questions they ask, what informations we need, so we've got to have 2 or 3 meetings to get comfort. So that's my impression. So I think from that perspective, we don't need to review the ordinance necessarily. We just want to make sure we're asking all the
Right.
questions.
Right, I think the goal with this is to avoid needing to ask the person applying for the permit to come back and tell us about, well, forgot to tell us about this part, so you'll have to come back at another meeting. Like ideally, they can go through, fill it all out, and not be missing anything. Like I said, I might have missed something, so please.
There's one piece, I thought I had this memorized, but apparently I'm having a senior moment. I thought there was a trigger, perhaps a couple thousand individuals, at which point you need a state permit.
Okay.
I think it might be useful to note that on here. It's not
Yes.
our permit, but just to say.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah?
Section C, why, am I missing something? Why is the Rotary's logo on the top of section C?
Oh, because we built the banner thing, I think. I think that's why it's there, but I just grabbed the application from online. I did not add it.
No?
Yes, this was not a little subterfuge on my part. That is the application that is on the website.
Yeah.
Interesting. And
The only
then,
thing I added to that was section C.
and then follow up for type of entertainment, I feel like there's a few redundancies.
Yep,
Live music, mechanically or electronically produced music, and then concerts under live productions. all kind of say the exact same thing to me, where they could all be filed under live music.
That's fair. Is there a difference permit-wise between if you have like a DJ with versus like a band?
I don't believe so, no.
It's just if you have,
For the decibels, isn't it?
if you have
They're
loud
still
music.
making noise. There's noise
So
one
if
way
you
or
have
another.
loud music, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other piece I recommend adding, and this has only come up once, but it did come up, may as well, I think, put it there. I think we should ask the applicant to confirm that, how do I phrase it? I guess simply, have you confirm with the zoning administrator your event is in compliance with your permit? Because we had an outdoor event. I think that was not at one point. I think it's a rare thing, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have it in here.
I think the other thing too is, do we want to have a provision where they, like a box where they say if they've talked to the fire chief too?
I think so.
Yeah, I would, yeah. I think just talking to the fire chief or like having the fire chief review some of the plans before it even gets to us would probably be better.
Maybe like a signature line for both of them?
Yeah.
And I do intend to send this with like whatever we come up with tonight to zoning and fire chief to get their input as well, because I'm sure they have input.
I'm not sure that every event requires the review by the fire chief, but there should be anything that requires a road closure, I would think would require his approval.
Is there any other reasons why? Just because we could make like
Size of the
a
event?
flow chart, you know, like ideally.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess, are you asking for approval or just acknowledgement? Because it's your permit to approve.
Right.
Right, it's our permit to approve, but I think if we see that the fire chief has signed off, it's gonna make us a lot easier to approve it,
Yeah.
you know? So I think maybe like not required, but highly advised if your event includes road closure or
Otherwise,
it's,
we'll invite you back to the next
yeah,
meeting.
pretty much.
Do you want to, does the select board want to include anything on here for larger events where you require a police presence?
Require what?
A
A police
presence.
presence,
Please, okay.
which is, I know it's also been a difficult thing. They're not always available. I think that's oftentimes part of the iterative process we go through, just like the one we just did.
Is it like over a certain attendee amount that we require police?
You know, it's,
Do we have
It's
the
hard.
state?
Or at least security.
That could be a guide.
it's hard because I think it's, Circus Smirkus is in a much less crowded area than the event that's going on, the jam in the park on September 6th, right?
Right, but would we differentiate between security and police presence? Is the other question, is like, maybe you don't necessarily need the cops there,
Yeah.
but you definitely need somebody or,
To protect the property.
I guess I don't have an exact number in mind. I think it's your best judgment, but in my mind,
Certainly over 100. I would recommend security.
100 at any one time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend security.
And is there a point, and obviously it doesn't need to be answered tonight, but is there a point at which you would more require a law enforcement than just private security?
A lot, I think, depends upon really the type of event. You know, there are some events that might have a few more people, but probably don't require police, they may want security, but
We could also not make it necessarily a requirement, but in the safety plan, maybe just like a suggestion somewhere of if your event is over 300 people, then we would suggest you contact a security company or police. I don't know.
Well, you have
Thoughts?
like
I
a
don't care.
little craft show, I don't think they're typically, and they're gonna be probably over 300. And they're typically, I typically don't see a lot of security in a lot of craft shows or that type of show. It's more the shows that involve alcohol that are the ones that usually require some sort of
Well, then we could
security.
compartmentalize that if the event
Right, but
has an alcohol vendor.
the alcohol is
then we-
contained, the alcohol like requirements are through the state anyways, right?
Yeah.
The alcohol requirements go through the state permit anyways, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
a permanent
Doesn't
section of
necessarily
the
require
talk about,
police presence or.
Police
Okay.
presence.
Yeah. Maybe that's our requirement is if they have an alcohol vendor, that they have security.
Yeah. There are a lot
But if
of
it's a
low,
small event, there's no.
Yeah, I mean, if it's somebody's
like, I don't see like the Little League parade needs security.
Well, they're not serving a lot of alcohol. But what do they do?
I hope they're not serving kids.
So maybe if they were serving alcohol and it's over 100 people?
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay.
If it has the ability to become rowdy.
Right,
yeah.
okay. Also, it's looking like this, just for information purposes and Googling, it looks like the, state assembly permit comes in at 2,000 people, but I do think it's still worth
Worth noting.
noting on there. Not against that. Okay. Cool. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
First, I want to thank you for your hard work on
Yes,
this.
thank you.
Two, I like the way it meets, as I call it, the KISS principle. Keep it simple. You know, I think this,
Tried.
anyone can't really challenge this as a hard process to do. I think it's very straightforward, and I think the few added things the questions were helpful.
Cool. Then I will, yeah, definitely helpful to get your guys' input, because I mean, I've never had to fill one of these out. Dan always handles them for Rotary, and I've only sat through a couple now, so, yeah, I'll make these changes, and then I'll circulate to zoning and fire chief, anybody else that you think should be able to weigh in, or,
Town clerk, please.
Yep.
Who often.
Great call.
Is the one who receives these permits.
Yep.
I bet has awesome input. Yeah, and I would just say, I'm hearing kind of like a desire for gradation around size if alcohol is served. I guess road closure is my only other question.
Yeah.
I'm also curious like, what timelines we need to state. You included the state liquor permit, which does not actually get submitted to us. So my
Right.
guess is Karen may have some feedback on just like
how to, yeah.
those actually need to land in different places, but that point of like, when do you also need a state one, when do you also need other people's?
Yeah.
And I just don't, per the flow chart, I don't know the best way to
Right, and I didn't,
reflect
I'll
that.
be honest, I didn't like, the flow chart's gonna hopefully look better once I knew exactly what the flow needed to be. So,
I
Yeah.
thought Harry had a question.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
If I may,
Larry,
I'll
please,
offer
yeah.
Things on this one, appreciate you guys thinking about it. Living on the west side of Route 2.
Yeah.
There are impactful events that make it difficult for people to get in town. In addition to road closures, I would recommend it, if they're gonna be setting up like temporary turning lanes, like they do for the car show, right? That's a blue light event, I recommend strongly. Just last week, a week before now, there was some heated discussions at that intersection.
How,
It's really hard to get into the village that side of it. And so it works now, we need that economic vitality, but I hope there's not 20 of those in the future.
right.
You might want to think about that because there are real impacts there.
Do they, when they set those up, Do they have somebody out there directing traffic, or is it kind of, yes?
Yeah, they have private traffic control.
Okay,
And I did see blue light there one of the 2 times I went through.
okay,
So they're trying the best they can, and it fits really tightly. But another thing they do there that makes it a bigger event, they do 2 curb cuts, right? I think there is a functional size there where they kind of cross the threshold, they need more traffic control, they probably need blue lights. What that exact number is, I don't know, but
right.
it is something to think about. They have big weddings there. Could be
Yeah.
if they're needing to
Yeah.
do something. Thank you.
So maybe there's a separate thing for alterations to normal traffic flow or something,
I think it's good.
yeah. Okay.
In that same vein, I'm curious about road races or another thing we get, and would that be considered part of this permit or something separate? But other things we frequently get is 100 on 100, Leaf Peepers Half Marathon. I mean, Leaf Peepers is probably an event in terms of the convening that happens, but I'm curious.
Does that not count like as a road closure? They don't close?
Well, they don't close the road.
Some
They don't.
exist on a road but don't close the road. Gravel grinder is maybe another one. So those have often also been,
So
again,
maybe that-
something that comes to us, and I'm just,
So maybe
I don't
that
have a
goes-
proposal, but to reflect, like, if you're not closing the road but putting a lot of humans on the road, thus that it requires select board
Which would alter normal
notification.
traffic flow.
Yeah.
So maybe, okay.
Well, if we have a few of those, should those be a separate category up top?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, like, what comes
Yeah.
before us frequently. And then I do think some of this also came from the old village noise ordinance, and I'm just curious about, like, consistency of downtown venues having live music and how often people are actually doing live entertainment permits. And I guess, Tom, you mentioned you don't see a problem with the ordinance, and I'm not maybe purporting there is one, but I'm just curious, like, is every live musician at a restaurant in Waterbury submitting one of these always, or
Certainly not.
do we need to think about the appropriate threshold? I just want to be realistic of, like, again, is it number of attendees at an event? You know, if someone's, I don't know, doing acoustic music with a guitar at a restaurant, I'm personally not worried about that, nor do I think we're enforcing it in candor. But I feel like that's some of where this came from, and just like, if no one's ever going to submit the permit, I think we maybe do need to look at the ordinance.
There's, I was talking to Neil in zoning, and I think there's a couple ordinances that maybe we should look at and update. So maybe that's in my parking lot.
If you're willing,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay.
Yeah,
Or ordinance updates if needed.
And I've always wondered if they should just be combined into one.
They should just what?
Just be combined into one ordinance.
Yeah.
You know, we have an entertainment ordinance, we have parks, you know, that even parks can be, I think, combined with this. Since mostly that's about events at the parks.
All right, well, let's get through the application first, and then I'll chit chat with Neil about ordinances in the next week or so. Okay.
Other questions? Roger?
In terms of
Yeah.
the flow chart, it'd be nice to be able to define the minimum requirements for a permit, so that people having less than 100 people at an event that's not going to have a parade or alcohol and so forth, can just opt out, so we can be clear as to those that are not going to require a permit.
Okay. Okay. I think I see what you're saying. Okay.
Do you have an example?
A house party.
Right, but I don't think a house party needs a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are many house permits that have over 100 people.
And they're not, you know, selling drinks.
I don't think anybody that's throwing a house party is gonna be applying to us for a permit either.
Right.
But I think that also goes to the noise ordinance thing, doesn't it? Is like, should they be technically, and they aren't.
We have
Yeah.
I would say, to be clear, we have no noise ordinance, which is a hot topic, but,
Take that one up. Be popular.
but yes, right, what's the threshold? And maybe it's on
Right.
venue, maybe it's commercial property versus public, maybe it's liquor, maybe it's catering. I unfortunately don't have an answer for you, but I agree it's worthwhile to be
Okay.
realistic about what we think is gonna be
Yeah.
proposed and not.
Well, I appreciate all your thoughts. Very, very helpful. I will, like I said, I'll read, I'll change some things. I'll circulate it. Maybe it'll be back next meeting, ideally.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Yes, thank you, Tori. Thank you, board members. I know this is a bit of a working session, but I think worthwhile to move these things forward. This has been in the parking lot for quite a while. Next up, we have Better Connections grant updates, and I know Tom has a number of updates. He shared them with me Friday. I'm going to go get documents for the next also working agenda item off the printer, but we'll turn it over to Tom for that.
Yep. So we had our kickoff on that grant study with the consultant last week. Couple of dates to put in mind. The first is, the consultant wants a good understanding of existing conditions and how they are in Waterbury Center in that study area, which is really the triangle plus, a quarter mile-ish around it. Further than that, mile-ish around it, going up and around. And there's a special event September 6th at the reservoir, and so Duncan McDougall and Katie are going to work with some of the other volunteers to get pictures and give the consultants some education about some of the traffic challenges that occur there. So it's actually a fortuitous event that was approved by the Selectboard. Part of the scope also includes a walking tour, and that's going to take a while. It's a big area. It's not, a block. So that is tentatively scheduled for Saturday, October 4th. And then again, tentative, the rain date is Sunday. Not a time yet, but those are the dates we internally selected and made it work with us and the consultant. And so that was, I think, I just wanted to get those dates out there and on the calendar. There was a steering committee approved by the select board, and that will be meeting at some point in September. I don't have an exact date there for the steering committee kickoff, but we should have that relatively soon. We just have to coordinate some schedules. Those steering committee meetings will be held at Cliff in Waterbury Center, which is really right part of the study area. And they've got all the Wi-Fi, all the bandwidth they need to host that. Because it was a committee appointed by the select board, those are public meetings, so we'll have to follow open meeting law, all that good stuff, which is fine, just something to be aware of. And then we had a bit of a ministerial issue arise. The state vetted the steering committee because they had to make sure that they're in line with the municipal code of ethics that applies to state employees in the state. And as it turns out, one of the individuals you appointed to the steering committee, Marcy Gallagher, is employed by a firm called Local Motion, and Local Motion has done work in other Better Connections grants, and so there's a conflict there, and so Duncan McDougall called her and said, you can't be on the steering committee because of the conflict at the state level. Not an issue, I think she understood. But it also would be appropriate for the select board to formally unappoint her for that reason. So it's interesting that the state has their own vetting process and they followed it, and that's good to hear. But it causes a little bit of challenges sometimes, and it's just part of what I think you deal with when you've got a steering committee of over a dozen people. But it was, I thought, a pretty good kickoff meeting. We're still hoping to adhere to roughly a 12-month timeline to get the whole Better Connections study done. One piece the consultant will try to do sooner rather than later is, there's a stormwater component to this, and the concept is to identify about a half dozen potential stormwater projects, and to bring a couple of them to what they call 30% engineering, which essentially would get the town in line for the next phase of funding to do final engineering on these. So we can either hire a company to do boring, or we can use our own public works department and do test holes that are 10 feet deep that we can do with our own mini excavator and crew. Just a matter of determining where those test holes are. So we might have to spend a little bit of time and energy. You know, they may not be on our land, or they may be in the state's right of way for Route 100. So we've got to figure that out. But Public Works Director assures me our mini excavator has got 10 feet of reach, so we can do that. Not a heavy lift for us. Just have to get the recommended sites. And I think that was the Better Connections update. I think we're all looking forward to getting moving faster, and I think the walking tour will be fun. And Duncan and Katie have promised food. I think a few other steering committee members have, so always helps to have food on a Saturday, right?
Can you tell me the date and time of that tour again?
I don't have a time yet, but the tentative date is October 4th, with a tentative rain date of the 5th. And we wanted to do it, we didn't want to go later, because then you get into leaf papers.
You're already into.
We were hoping you were a little bit early for it.
Yeah, good trying to avoid it, but no,
Depends upon the year.
those people
Right
start in
there.
September.
I have a good frame of reference. My wife's birthday's the 5th.
Okay, so you think that's, well, I guess the point is to see some of the challenges that arise, so.
You'll definitely see the challenges.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a very
So we'll make sure everyone has high-vis vests.
walk.
Right. Any other questions or updates? Joke about me taking a motion to designate October 4th as in leaf peeper season, but I don't think we need that. Someone was going to acknowledge that Marcy Gallagher is no longer on the committee. Do you want a motion, Tom, just accepting
Yeah, I
the
think-
state's recommendation?
Yeah, I was going to move to remove Marcy Gallagher from the steering committee.
Second.
Motion by Roger, second by Kane. Any further discussion on that? Right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I think we are all set. Any other Better Connections items?
Oh, that's it.
All right, thanks, Tom. And this one is already up on the municipal website under news and initiatives.
Yep, and I'm going to update it probably tomorrow with some of those tentative dates.
Awesome. Great. Next up, we have the repeat agenda items on town plan aspiration goals and strategies. And I said to Tom before the meeting, it never feels good to not do your homework. And I will acknowledge I did not send this all to you ahead of time. I do have updated aspirations to review, which I will pass around for board review. And I think I can do 2 more copies, so I'll go grab them. The bolded 1, 2, 3, 4 is what we're focusing on.
I got it.
Quite a miss.
And Billy has his hand up.
Yes, thanks. Hi, Billy, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Is there a shareable version that you could put on your screen so we can see it?
Yes, I will join the Zoom right now.
Thank you.
Focus.
Where is it? Make co-host. There you go. I'm just gonna get a drink.
Okay, so we looked at this briefly at our last meeting, and again, what the planning commission has asked for is 3 levels of details. One is aspirations, which are like the really broad things. If we did everything completely, we would have achieved our goals. We then drill those down to specific, goals and strategies that help achieve them. This document is not that. This document is a combination of things. Some of the things that got brought up at the last meeting is that Billy highlighted all the input from the town survey. The things you're seeing in the A's and B's and C's underneath is that input. So I tried to make sure that the goals that we were proposing were reflective of what the 10% of the community said they wanted to see, that it was a goal reflecting that input. I also went back and looked at the 2018 town plan and pulled in some of the things there. I think for the board to note, passing a local option tax was one of them. So that's one that has in fact happened since then, particularly with regards to kind of the taxation and maintaining affordability. So what I have for review for the board tonight is these 4 aspirations, and just wanting to make sure that if folks have changes, that they submit them, and then otherwise we can get them over to the planning commission. I think there's more work to do in terms of developing strategies, but this way at least those are things that the board have agreed on. You're seeing the first 2 here around Waterbury provides modern, high-quality, value-added municipal services to residents while maintaining affordability for taxpayers. That residents of all ages are actively engaged in decision-making on municipal issues and have access to timely, informative, and easily accessible information to inform their decision-making. 3 and 4 maybe should be 1, maybe should be 2, but the other categories that came out for around adequate municipal staffing and facilities to meet the needs of Waterbury residents. And then Waterbury has a responsive local government that's able to meet the needs of residents and adapt to meet future challenges. You'll notice that some things I put in multiple categories, like public safety. I don't know if that's considering staffing facilities or meeting future needs. Ditto with a lot on government efficiency and coordination, etc. So, yeah. Input, questions, objections, all welcome, but just wanted to have some time here to review.
Will the subsections be included, or is it just?
Yeah, I think basically they would migrate into goals and strategies, but I did not flush those out in adequate time to review. So for now, I just wanted to make sure that at least for the big picture aspirations. But I think, those would be the things that lead to achieving a thing.
Your
Yeah, definitely.
subsection A and both 3 and 4 are the same thing.
Yes.
Right. I think it fits better in 4 than 3.
Great.
Just a lofty goal.
It is, but
Also note that it says considerations such as, so I mean, in practice, that may be something like review annually, or
yeah.
We've had one study committee, we could have another, but that it's on our radar is something to consider.
I think you have the planned budgets with preventative strategies rather than reactive spending in 1 and 4, and I think it fits better in 1. I'm not saying that it doesn't also kind of fit in that,
Yeah.
but I just think if we don't want repeats, I think it is much better in 1.
I also want, maybe this is our capital planning note or something around future planning. It was here with that note of that
Yeah.
we're doing intentional planning for future spending.
Maybe you say that though, intentional planning for future spending. Yeah, this is kind of the same, but not really, yeah. Sorry, Kane.
It's okay. I feel like subsection D and F in aspiration number 2, though written differently, are redundant. If that makes sense.
D and F,
Yeah.
younger generations and equitable access.
I kind of disagree.
Okay.
I agree and disagree, because I think as well, I'm very much for encouraging involvement of the younger generation, but I think we're losing older generations that we're communicating with as the digital divide keeps on separating us. I think you see a lot of older residents who are very civically involved, but then there are others who are totally losing touch with their civic government.
Right. I think that's kind of why I see
Yeah.
F is different, just because equitable can mean a lot of different demographics.
Look, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on.
No, that's fair. Thank you. Okay. Done then.
Also, this language is in here because this was the summary from the town plan that specifically, or
Got
sorry,
it.
from the input survey that was calling out the desire for more 20s and 30s. I'm hearing from the select board that we want to name all generations with both 20s and 30s and older residents
agree.
being identified as gaps, so we can reflect that.
I didn't say all generations. No, never
What?
mind. Never mind. You're doing
Okay,
great.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think you did a very good job.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this?
If I may, I mean, these are your.
Please, Tom.
Section E in Part 2 is great, and I love it. It's far more specific than.
Yes.
Subsection of a subsection.
Well, that's what this will all be. I would just say, like, this is, had I had enough time to format it nicely, it would in fact align with this of like, aspiration is the big picture thing, the goal is slightly more specific and time bound, and the strategy is like the specific thing we put on a work plan for the next year.
I kind of like it as its own thing.
Okay.
Just because if we do subsections for subsections, I'm going to be tempted to add more subsections, and then we'll all go crazy. And I feel like having a very specific item that would be easy for us to check off maybe isn't the worst thing.
And I guess the other just piece to note of where this is going, so
Yeah.
Billy's here and Billy speak to this, and Martha emailed me today before the meeting. So we're submitting this in the select board again. Tom did this as town manager, everyone else. So on the 25th, there's gonna be actually a huddle based on everyone's input. So like, we're submitting it with a very municipally focused lens, but
Okay.
we have what the Conservation Commission says, what Tom is saying, what EFUD is saying. I will note
Yeah.
water sewer was named in this, and we don't actually have jurisdiction.
Right,
So,
I kind of
we
like
do.
that one.
well,
Because according to the chair of EFUD, it's the select board's responsibility to extend the sewer system. And at that point, they will take on management of it, but they are not going to extend it themselves.
Interesting differentiation.
okay.
Okay. So we leave it.
Just saying.
So we have to put
Well,
up the
it's
big
3A,
box.
so it's there. But it's a good note.
I was
Yeah.
wondering about,
Do you, sorry, go ahead, Roger.
I was just going to say whether we should mention anything about the health of, protecting the health of the general public. And any mention of natural disaster preparedness.
Yeah, where do you think they would be best?
4.
I think that's so
Four.
important with,
Yep.
after we've been through COVID and all the natural disasters. I think that's very good.
Just a question, Alyssa. I'll admit I haven't read the survey responses in a while. Was there a lot of public support for creating a police department again?
I pasted everything, like I didn't
Okay.
differentiate, I
Okay.
can screen share the page, but it was named as something to explore, so I just copied these as they showed up in the summary from the planning commission.
Hence my comment about the lofty goal.
I think it was also, I said I also copied in from the 2018 town plan,
Mhm.
and it wasn't there too, in some form. Billy, go ahead, you can correct me. We can't hear you, Billy, but floor is yours if you want it.
Oh, okay, I'm here. So Bill, just to answer Tom, if you get into the detail, there were a number of people who were concerned about safety. They said things like they wanted a larger police preference, they wanted traffic, particularly Needland Flats, they wanted safe pedestrian crossings. And we saw that in a number of the detailed questions in the survey.
Okay, thank you.
Roger?
Yeah, I was just exercising my fingers.
I guess the only other thing that sticks out to me here, Alyssa, is part 4D. No argument about municipal services, but I guess I feel like if you're defining facilities as buildings, we're pretty modern.
Yeah, but if something comes up, we should be, I think it's just like, not necessarily that we're saying we're outdated, but we want to stay on top of it.
In that
living
same,
document,
like
we could always
New
improve
safety
at some point.
system.
in that same subsection, how are we defining consolidate? That's just
It's a good question. I think this was a 2018 town plan one, at which point there was much more energy around the town versus EFUD. So we could certainly change it. We can take out consolidate and just say,
Well, if you want to say like consolidate services, but consolidate being the beginning of the subsection makes me think that we're trying to shrink the size of the town government.
I disagree.
Would it feel better if it said modernize and potentially consolidate?
Yeah. I know
I'm
where you're
still,
going.
I'm still at a loss for, like, are we consolidating services? Are we consolidating facilities? We have, 4 buildings.
Maybe both.
I know where you're going, but
Can't really
sometimes you
park
may
the
want
trucks
for
in the
efficiency,
parking lot.
departments kind of consolidating them. There are different ways, I don't think we're gonna shutter any of our facilities.
What about modernize and ensure
The
efficiency?
one up on Woody-
strive for
Woody
efficiency.
Avenue
Yeah.
will come down, but we'll put up a new one.
ensure efficiency of is Troy's proposed edits.
Or strive for? I don't know.
It's up to you. On modernized time, I guess I would say, I feel like a conversation about a future rec facility is nothing if not modernizing our facilities.
Fair enough.
But also you will always need to modernize.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, a new diving board would be cool. Just throwing
I
it.
agree.
I think we like that here.
I love the diving boards, but like they are a little beat up, just,
For your point of
Technically, we have the depth for 3 meter.
We did consolidate planning and zoning.
Yeah.
They used to be.
Sure.
I heard you.
Right.
All right, I think, and acknowledging I created the editing in real time, which is always just a fun and effective use of public meeting time. Is there any major objections on anything here that I'm seeing from anyone besides the points added?
No.
Or with some zhuzhing by me?
No.
The board is okay with this
Excellent
being
job.
submitted?
yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this, Alyssa, really. I did
problem.
not do my homework and getting you feedback, so this was a very great working session, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Billy. The answer to Martha, which I'll also provide her over email, is I will work to get that to all of you tomorrow. I will say I personally am going to the Planning Commission meeting on the 25th, so I'm happy to elaborate on that in person. And if anyone else wants to go, there'll be more input there.
Alyssa, may I throw in some-
Oh, please.
I wonder about some of that in terms of it being aspirations for the town plan. I wonder about, I think Roger brought up a great point about our utility district isn't really interested in having their ratepayers involved in expanding our water and sewer system for economic development or housing, right? Because they're so utility focused. I wonder about with CHIP funding, where the state is talking about $100 million a year for 10 years associated with housing, if we shouldn't have an aspirational task that says, let's look at what expanding the sewer and water service areas might be. Is it crazy to extend sewer up Mountain Road and try to provide capacity further up into the center? Is it crazy to go out west on Route 2 and build flood-proof resistant housing? That you gotta expand the sewer area, you gotta build a pump station, but that's not aspirational. This was kind of perfunctory, you know, what a typical town plan looks at. If we're gonna be aspirational and we have millions of dollars available, at least we should talk about it. And that's what town plan should think about.
And I guess what the sentiment I've heard from the EFUD commissioners is not that they're not interested in not expanding. We're doing an expansion project now to try to get to East Wind Mobile Home Park. It's that the cost doesn't really allow you to do it if you can only bill ratepayers. And they don't like this concept of expanding and having all ratepayers pay for an expansion. So I think Skip's point of saying to Roger was the town can act like a developer and build a line to our specs, and then we will own it and maintain it, is, I think, Skip's way of saying that, you know, the town's got other funding sources EFUD really doesn't have access to, and that I think is part of the challenge here.
But it's also the opportunity.
Yeah, but EFUD doesn't.
Also be thinking a little bit about the governance structure. And maybe EFUD's future is departments of the town. And I also want to suggest that I think there should be more heft in there about quality of life and public safety. How many multi-level apartment buildings are we going to build in a kind of a compact area and not have a police force? I just think that more should come out of this town planning effort than just kind of that vanilla fudge.
Thank you. And I will also say that was the most vanilla fudge chapter. So I will also say there's an entire chapter on housing that I think is quite bold and aspirational in that regard. So I think you also got the very perfunctory running municipal services as municipal services, not a growth oriented, but we will have to weigh in on everything.
Another one I would throw up is the Shutesville Wildlife Corridor. As a member of the DRB, we really have no mechanism for dealing with any development up there. Should be part of what's in this effort.
Okay. Other questions or input from folks? I can report back after next Monday.
I'll just say that, just to sort of agree with Harry, it seems to me that Morrisville or Morristown went sort of crazy with housing development without taking into consideration other municipal services, and they did get themselves in a bit of a fix because of it. So I think looking at this more comprehensively, I think this is the opportunity to do that.
Do you want to add anything on that? Let's see.
Throw the word comprehensive somewhere.
Well, and I will name I have the current town plan housing goals memorized because I'm on the housing task force, and it's adequate housing to meet the needs of current and future Waterbury residents. So I will say, in thinking about the local governance to meet current and future challenges, I will say I was somewhat, I think the governance structure question is real. I think we've had that conversation with town meetings, so if that's, or other things, or modernizing systems, I think there's certainly more granularity on all of that. I do think we have public safety named. You mentioned resident health. We could say safety and quality of life is one that just came up.
Maybe enact a on for E, new E, enact a comprehensive approach to considering population growth and corresponding town services.
Bingo.
Oh, if I can spell comprehensive. And I'll just add holistic planning related to the above, for things like flood mitigation and where planning is. What can I spell holistic?
I think it's just one L, isn't it?
Guess so.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you again for drafting.
No problem. Alrighty, that brings us to Select Board and Municipal Manager informational updates. Anyone who's excited to go?
Tree Board has not met, but there is a concert at Zen Barn on August 30th at 8 p.m. that Rotary is helping promote because it benefits a 501c3 that helps towards people in Ukraine and like helps them, like people that were displaced from their homes in Ukraine and are still in Ukraine, getting them shelter, services, and help.
Where is it?
It's at Zen Barn on August 30th at 8 p.m. if you feel so inclined. And it is a band from Ukraine that are all like classically trained and doing folk music. It's supposed to be pretty cool.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Awesome, thank you. Mike, do you have any updates?
No updates, having been out of the lower 48 for the last 3 weeks.
Roger, how about you?
I noticed that on the next town meeting, next meeting schedule, there was a mention of Susan Clark. So I reached out to her to get her any input that she might have on options to expand participation in our town meeting.
Sweet.
Any other updates?
I got nothing else.
Cool. Kane?
I finished the design for the essentially Uncle Sam, we want you to volunteer for the Natural Disaster Response Corps, and I will be getting it printed this week. I have opted to print it myself as that's cheaper.
Send it to me and I'll throw it up on Facebook and all that.
Okay. It's gonna go in bars. It should be about yay big. It's got a QR code on it. It says volunteers needed in big words.
If you can send the graphic over for Rotary's social media, that'd be good too.
Can do.
Awesome. And you all are meeting next month? I guess.
Yes. Usually I rely on email updates
Okay.
from the committees.
Being clear, I'm not taking credit, but I'm just making awareness that the municipal dispatch from August, there's a couple printed copies out on the benches with lots of informative info. Just for awareness for the board, let's see, me, Skip, and Tom meant to check in, and then I met with Tom, and I guess I'm saying that by way of illustrating time spent on select board things that are not other items. And we have a housing task force meeting on Thursday, so I will share from that at our next meeting. But I think I don't have any other updates that haven't been covered. Tom, anything else that wasn't covered on the agenda?
Yep, couple of things. Became aware last week, there is a source of funding available called Northern Borders. There's the Northern Borders Regional Commission, and they fund recreation initiatives as part of it. And so there's a pre-application due the end of August, I think the 29th. So Katerina and I are going to delve into that this week. There's up to $1 million in funding for infrastructure, but there's also up to $100,000 in funding for feasibility studies. And we've got to make some have some phone calls and make some determinations about what we think is the best course for a recreational facility. No, there hasn't been a whole lot of public conversation about that. The rec committee's talked about it. We've done some work with a consultant. But our thinking is the pre-application is pretty easy. It's, 2 or 3 pages of concise narrative, and they invite you then to submit the full application. So whether it's this year or next year, good grant program to get familiar with and give it a shot. So our policy requires select board approval of significant grant applications, however we define that. So if we have an application and we're invited to apply, we'll come before you at a future date.
Considering I just asked for a new diving board, I'm in full support of this.
I'll hold you to it. Second thing, I will send a reminder tomorrow, but by the end of September, you all have to take watch the ethics video, which is available on the state website. You can create a login and password, and if you watch the video, you'll get an email saying you watched it, and you can just send that to me for posterity or keep it. It's supposed to be done by the end of September. There was a conference call with the State Ethics Commission last week. They have put on their website a while back that they simply will not assist municipalities in any way, and I guess they've backtracked from that a bit. But one of the topics during the call was, hey, there's a Vermont League of Cities and Towns. They're our go-to. Shouldn't there really be a partnership here if the Ethics Commission is supposed to help us? Here's our organization that we pay dues to help us. And their answer was no, because they're an arm of the state, and so they can't appropriately partner with a nonprofit, which was, I think, a disappointing answer to get. Just because, VLC is there to be a resource to us. So I think that'll move forward in fits and spurts. Just an FYI, I haven't done it yet, but there's been interest by our natural disaster coordinator, and her suggestion has been that a lot of people now use Instagram and not Facebook. And we have a town Facebook account, so I'll be creating an Instagram account, still be using it in accordance with our social media policy, but I guess you got to reach people based on the platform they're on, so.
I will say, based off of Rotary engagement, I feel like generally Instagram is more popular,
Yeah.
but in our town, I've noticed Facebook is still,
Aid-related.
Facebook's still reigning.
Yeah,
I
it's a
wouldn't-
generational thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother with TikTok just yet if anybody pushes for that.
Okay.
Tom doing TikTok dances?
I don't plan on it, trust me. Second thing, we had scheduled a conference call with a company that does building access systems, and we did budget for that and get photo approval for that. But as part of it, we also talked about other offerings they do, and we have a free 4-month security camera that we put in Town Hall. Now, if you walk down Town Hall, there's a number of security cameras that are owned by the Historical Society, and they're in that section of the building. I'm not convinced we need a security camera. Really, the conversation centered around recreation having a desire for a security camera. But we put it in Town Hall for a month for free, and there's a software system that comes with it. You can, it's security cameras now are AI, so it's got facial recognition, it's got all those features. So we thought, let's experiment for free. If there's a desire to go forward and purchase security cameras, whether it's at one facility or multiple facilities, the thought was select board approval, perhaps talk about a policy before we do that. But really the conversation centered around recreation, but a camera needs to be wired up, and we had it here, so we just temporarily popped it in to get a sense of how it works. Not here, it's out in the hallway there where we get some traffic consistently. So just wanted to brief you on that, and if you all tell me we're not ready to go down that road, then that's fine. We didn't pay a nickel for it, so.
Would not card access when we go down that road solve a lot of that problem?
Yeah, card access I think for me is a bigger priority, and part of card access is you know, we still have an old school key system to rent this room. So it'd be nice to just give people the card or a code and say, go forth and conquer, and by the way, the code we gave you expires at this date and time. So I think there's a public benefit to that. I think it makes it easier for this room to be used by the public off hours. And we'll get there. Just the camera conversation came up, and they provide a lot of cameras to Vermont municipalities. So we thought, well, if you're offering a free one, let's go ahead and give it a
Free
shot.
is always good.
How does the staff feel about it?
Oh, sorry?
How does the staff feel about having cameras?
They've requested them in the past.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's any concerns there, and it's quite temporary.
Well, this is the time of year when people that suddenly realize they forgot to pay their property taxes come in and sort of
That in fact
volatile.
That in fact has
Figures of mine.
already happened. Not quite flood updated related, but a little bit in that wheelhouse on the FEMA buyout. So these two properties here on Main Street, which have some, at least one of them has some known contamination, and the other one is suspected. Took a while, but there's the BRELA program, which is a state program. And I'm gonna struggle with the acronym, but BRELA is Brownfields.
Remediation, environment, limited liability.
Liability
something,
protection.
Something, limited liability being the emphasis.
So what BRELA does is it protects the property owner from brownfield environmental concerns that are not discovered. It also protects you from future regulatory changes. So if the federal government or the state government do something in the future, we're still protected. So the thought was get those two properties enrolled in BRELA and also get them enrolled in the Brownfields cleanup program, which would pay for the actual cleanup. BRELA programs requires what's called a phase 1 environmental assessment, which is really a book review of what's known, the known history. It's $3,000 per property. Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission had some grant funds available, so they put that out to bid, and that'll get done pretty quickly. And then I am working on the BRELA application this week. And then the second phase will be the Brownfields program, and then provided everything is eventually approved on the FEMA end, we would be in a position to take ownership of those properties without putting the town taxpayers on the hook for anything. So that's the goal. It just takes time to get there.
Any other updates?
I guess just the final update. Pool season is over. You may have noticed it wasn't brown with algae. So in general, there was some, but in general, the new coating, I think, helped a lot with that. They did at one point go in a weekend and pour a whole lot of chemicals in the shallow end, and the issue is circulation in the shallow end. So we're going to drain the pool soon, and we've got some additional painting we're gonna do, and then it's gotta be full a certain amount for the winter. But by all accounts, the 50,000 or so that was invested this spring in the new pool coating was really helpful. So before we paint this fall, we're gonna pressure wash a small section, because we're worried that, in fact, the pressure washer might take off half the pool. So we want to make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble. But we're thinking about finishing that paint job next year, which of course is a significant budget item. And we're also thinking about looking at a new filter system. And part of it is, just how do we overcome the circulation challenges in the shallow end? Not a lot of circulation. Chlorine reacts with sunlight and air, and you just have no chlorine residual. And they're experimenting the next couple of weeks before we do that. And one thought is simply, hey, can we plug some of the skimmers in the deep end and force the water that way? Low-tech things to try out, but just teeing up, I thought it was a good pool season. It was nice to have a clean-looking pool. A lot of improvement compared to prior years. But I think more investment to be done there to just keep stabilizing the operation. And that's it for my updates.
Roger, I think you had a question, sorry.
Did you mention that the Northern Borders application is due August 29th?
The pre-application, so really just a narrative, a fairly simple, 4 or 5 question narrative.
Okay.
Statement of
But you
need.
don't need our authorization to submit that?
Not for the pre-app, because all they do is say, come back or not.
Okay. I was going to suggest we authorize that if it was needed.
Good?
I'm done.
Yep.
Good. All right. I'm anxious to get to our next thing, which is reviewing September meeting dates and next meeting agenda. So our regular meetings in September would be the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Monday of the month. September 1st is Labor Day. The board has often met on Labor Day, but I thought it warranted a full board discussion. We also have the 15th and the 29th. I will not be here for the 29th, but encourage you all to meet if you are able. But I guess the first question is, are we meeting on Labor Day, September 1st at 6:30, or is there an alternative proposal?
I can be there.
Yeah, I think, to me, that's fine. We've done it every year I've been on the board.
No problem.
Okay.
7 o'clock?
Push it back just a little.
Still gotta go to work the next day, Roger. I think it works.
It's coming back from Cape Cod and the traffic getting off the Cape. Well,
Okay.
Understand.
All right,
Any
I'd be
challenge?
okay pushing it back to
I'd
7
go
for Roger.
7:30.
Not 7:30,
We'll go
it's 7.
Tom, how are you feeling about that?
That's fine.
All right, so
Okay.
we'll go with a compromise, if you will, which is that we will meet on September 1st, but asterisk star, it will technically be special. We will start at 7 p.m. At 7 p.m. and then plan to meet both the 15th and the 29th unless there's any other changes. Any other notes? That then brings us to the all-important next meeting agenda.
I was just gonna, if you're not gonna be here the 29th, you and I should sit down and talk about that agenda.
Absolutely. For the first, now at 7 p.m., in the agenda items to be scheduled, we have capital plan, we still sidewalks were outstanding from Public Works. We also have the recreation capital plan. Roger mentioned his email to Susan Clark. I'm wondering if we should do an update on the request for qualifications for Stanley Watson. I felt like we had a fair amount of questions tonight, so just to give an update, or if there's discussion we need to have as a board. I don't know what you think, Tom.
Sure.
They're due, the responses are due when again?
End of September. I also met with a neighbor to the property, and she started a bit of an informal community group, and they might want the chance to come in and just talk to the board.
So we could just have it as like an input session, maybe
Yeah,
more
yeah,
potentially.
I think they'd appreciate that.
All right.
And then it fell off my radar. If we could pencil in for the 1st, maybe with the 15th as a fallback. Brian Voigt with CVRPC wanted to talk about some funding for stormwater master planning.
Sure. Can he also talk about the regional future land use map, of which I received a vague email saying with the select board? That was mostly I'll see if he can do
Was that
both.
Brian?
He's also,
Okay.
I don't know, I put it in the parking lot because CVRPC
Yeah, I remember that now.
emailed, and I don't actually think it's Brian Voigt. I think it's another one of their
Will we
staffers.
have updates on what do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I think that's very prudent, especially if we're submitting a CUG on it. I also don't know if we should ask the neighbors for input similarly. I will need my
Yeah.
feeling uneasy about the level of public input on that, yeah.
Okay. I mean, the shed's gotta be torn down one way or
Yeah.
another. but-
Yeah.
Alright. Other things folks would like on the agenda?
Do we want to plan the special meeting that Tom may need for the authorization to for $7,500.
Yeah, I'll let you know soon.
Do we want to schedule a date that we then cancel?
I just,
Perhaps is your proposal,
Since we're
Roger?
all here, it might
Yeah.
be easier to schedule now if we anticipate that it's gonna happen.
Okay, I mean, we could do like a Monday evening, a Monday midday, a workday midday. I don't know what folks' schedules
I
are.
mean, if it's gonna take us 5 minutes, I can phone in.
Yeah, Tom, when do you think you're gonna be ready to have that asked to us?
Hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday.
So should we just tentatively schedule like a late Wednesday thing? Like maybe like a 3 p.m. Wednesday? Call in? 'Cause it's gonna be like a quick,
We're gonna be
It's gonna be like a
having
quick
a
call-in?
walk on Wednesday.
This Wednesday, yeah.
October before.
Hmm?
Wait,
The walk around at Randall Meadow,
oh, that's
that's
Wednesday.
at 2:30.
Yeah.
Want to attend if we say Wednesday at 5?
Was Wednesday at 5 for the board?
I can zoom in for that, yeah.
I'll be kicking off dinner service. As long as there's 4 of you, I'm not gonna worry about
I
it.
can zoom in for it, yeah.
Okay, Wednesday
And
at
then-
5?
Yeah, I can do 5, but I'd have to be done by 5:15. Narrow window, but I can make it work.
Okay.
Okay. Wednesday at 5 p.m. if needed, Tom?
Yeah.
Any other? Mike, is that workable for you?
Yeah, I'm just,
All right. So Wednesday, 20th at 5 if needed, otherwise August 1st, Labor Day at 7 p.m. And we'll go from there. Yeah. Anything else for that? All right. We do have executive session for both labor negotiations and legal advice.
I move to find that premature public knowledge of labor negotiations and attorney-client privilege would place the town at a significant disadvantage.
Is there a second? Motion by Kane, second by Roger. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
I move to enter executive session
With town manager Sean.
and invite the town manager.
Second.
Motion by Kane, second by Tori. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, the board will go into executive session at 8:43 p.m.